Good afternoon or good morning, according to your time zone. My name is Stephen Beaumont. I am head researcher at Centro de Tecnología para el Desarrollo, CENTED. That's a non-profit based in Buenos Aires, Argentina. And the topic of my presentation today is entitled Rise and Fall of Massive Open Online Courses, Implications of Limitations in Teaching and Evaluation Processes. Let us begin with stating that in the particular case of e-learning pedagogical processes, we can find a wide range of educational methodologies, from automated to personalized ones. One example is the peer review methodology, where each participant in a virtual course to complete the assessment of each module should evaluate at least a determined number of works from their peers. This methodology is popular in one particular scenario which is not present, at least in equal dimensions, in classrooms teaching processes. This is the possibility of including within one particular course an enormous number of participants, which would be impossible even to imagine in a classroom teaching process. This is where the concept of mass education appears, and with it the concept of MOOCs, massive online open courses, or massive open online courses. Depends what by blog if you'll find it's stated both ways. On the other hand, we can see the results of a personalized education. Personalized methodologies in which the main instructor or coordinator or main teacher interacts directly with each student and performs feedback on each of the work, inquiries, or suggestions for them. So let's get more into detail. The key factor in any course implementation is the didactic design. Choosing the appropriate content, structuring it properly, and communicating it effectively form the basis upon which we can implement a successful learning process. In this context, we are constantly reflecting on questions such as what should a student know and what would be convenient for them to know. Also, how do we choose the priority issues? In what way should they be taught? What duration and intensity must the educational process have? Or how do we evaluate the outcome of this learning? All these issues are key to a learning process. Now, given these concerns, both from the point of view of the teacher as from the student, there is a need to analyze the entire educational process and identify the critical components that not only should not be absent, but must be optimized to achieve greater efficiency and effectiveness in all the process. Education is a process of systematically and intentionally directed communication toward achieving goals previously set or adjusted on the fly, and whose essential components are the person who must be educated, the educator, the message, the educational environment, and the numerous interactions between these different factors. I'm citing Decadele on a paper 1984 that's included on the bibliography, the references in the paper. Now, having said that, to plan a teaching program, the first thing we must have to be clear about is their objective, which defines the criteria used to select the material, design the program content, the teaching procedures, and the development of tests and examinations. The questions that arise are basically, where do these objectives come from? How do we set and organize them? What are the sources that we use to define these objectives? So, a lot of theorists say there's no single source, but each one has a certain value, and all of them must be considered when designing a comprehensive educational program. So what is the educational process? Let us start with that. As a result of the above steps, one can select a list of important and achievable goals, which, as they come from various sources, may be stated in different ways. When planning a single list of important objectives, it is inconvenient to list them in ways that are useful to be able to select learning activities and also guide these. Since the real purpose of education is not that the instructor performs certain tasks, but instead to promote significant changes in patterns of student behavior, it is important to recognize that every statement of objectives will be related to the changes experienced by the students. Meanwhile, another author, Stenhouse, very recognized in educational processes, argues that there are two ways to view the curriculum. The first one is to consider it as an intention, a plan, or a limitation on what we want to happen. The other idea is to see it as a state of the things that really happen. That's a very big difference, although it doesn't seem so. Therefore, he clarifies that the study of the curriculum must be concerned with the relationship between the intention that this curriculum actually has and the reality of its implementation. After all, the curriculum is what happens in real situations and not only its intention. It is not the hope, but the achievement, he states. The problem, when one specifies it, is to accurately perceive, understand, and describe what actually happens. That's a quote. So, having said that, the curriculum should, at least, provide the basis for planning a course, study it, and justify it empirically. The most important principles that must be respected are the selection of content, what should be taught and what should be learned. Also, the development of a teaching strategy. How must this be taught and learned? Also, the decision making on the sequence of events. How do we sequence the planned learning? Also, a diagnosis of strengths and weaknesses of each student and the possibility to adjust to various causes. Finally, it must study and evaluate the progress of both students and teachers. That's most important. Complementarily, Chevallard states that any social teaching and learning project is built dialectically by means of the identification and designation of contents. A content knowledge that has been designated as knowledge to be taught then suffers a set of changes that will make it suitable to occupy a place among the objectives of education. The experts who develop a curriculum become the mediators between scholarly knowledge and knowledge to be taught. Thus, the curriculum becomes a bridge between theory and action. Even more so if it allows freedom to both teachers and students. Having selected the content, one must also choose appropriate teaching strategies to achieve the desired goal. Designing teaching situations takes into account the assumptions concerning both teaching and learning. According to Saltis, there are three approaches to teaching regarding how the teacher is perceived. First one is the executive approach that sees the teacher as an executor, a person responsible for producing some learning, and to achieve this uses the best skills and techniques available for them. The second is what he defines it as the therapist approach. In this, he sees the teacher as an empathic person responsible for helping each individual in their personal growth and achieving a high level of understanding and acceptance. Finally is the liberating approach, which sees the teacher as a liberator of the individual's mind and as a promoter of moral, rational, and integrational human behavior. Interesting. Let's now go to another author, that's Brunner, very well known. And he classifies students as initiative apprentice. The students aim to achieve specific goals by steps of procedures. Second would be the didactic exposure apprentice, where the student constitutes himself as a receptacle of the knowledge. Then there is the thinker apprentice, where there are exchanges among peers and the student expresses previous knowledge but without theoretical support. When one advances, we can find what we call the apprentice as objective knower, where the student performs exchange but with theoretical support. That means basically that he must give valid theoretical arguments. Okay, that normally happens in postgraduate students. So, the way to propose the class depends on how the learner is considered according to the content, the student group, and the moment. The concepts of learner are dynamic and complementary. They're not exclusive, as Bruno states. So, in defining and prioritizing certain facets of a topic and providing these meanings to be promoted, The teacher anticipates the general context in which the process will develop, plans sequences of work, studies different ways to combine different tasks, for example, and this outline precisely is the adoption of a strategy, a plan that allows us to attain predefined goals. Now, Stenhouse defines this plan by saying, teaching strategy seems to refer more to the planning of teaching and learning based on principles and gives greater importance to teacher judgment. It involves the development and implementation of a course of conduct. Basically, what we're saying here is curriculum is a plan, not an outcome. Now, in the case of e-learning pedagogical processes, there is one particular scenario which is not present, at least in equal dimensions, in classroom teaching processes. This is the possibility of including within one particular course an enormous number of participants, which would be impossible even to imagine a classroom teaching process. This is where the concept of mass education appears, what is called like mass open online courses, or MOOCs, what's called basically. These concepts may seem very attractive because of the volume of students, but are very sensitive to environmental design, which can determine the success or failure of the process. On the other hand, we can see results of personalized methodologies in which the main instructor or a coordinator interacts directly with each student and perform feedback on each of their works, inquiries, suggestions, etc. So basically, one of the main issues in today's online education programs is trying to find the right balance between the amount of students and the amount of teachers or coordinators assigned to each particular course. The main problem is the cost of this. How can you offer free MOOCs, massive online open courses, to thousands of students when you should probably have to pay a couple of hundred teachers or coordinators? Obviously, there's much more to say about the subject and is always open to debate. But the contrast between models with less teacher involvement versus those that require greater dedication pose significant challenges when designing a virtual technology process. Basically, we can summarize this dilemma as automation versus customization. Thank you. I have exceeded my time limit. I would have liked to say a lot more. I left out various items on my paper, but I think the time limit was 15 minutes and I'm about 19. So sorry about that. I hope we have the whole video, and don't hesitate to email me or contact me. I'll be willing to interact with all the participants of this very prestigious conference, and I thank Sakarya University for hosting this very prestigious event. Thank you, and once again, thank you.